Hello people of the earth and welcome to QuickSave TV. My name is Mike and today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about attributes in Diablo 3. Let us begin. There is only 4 attributes in the game, which makes my job awfully easy for you and for you awfully easy to listen as well. So we have strength, dexterity, intelligence, vitality. Now by design there are three of these attributes out of 4 are primary for each class. Vitality is universally useful for each class as it increases the vitality. Of course, you could argue that some classes such as Barbarian or a Monk, due to their damage mitigation abilities, in case of a Monk it's dodge, in case of Barbarian it's else sheer physical resistance, else it's a shield, they can mitigate this damage. But vitality is universally useful across the board just because more hit points, even with low damage resistance, means that you're gonna live longer. Let's start with strength. Strength, primary attribute for barbarians. Now, under primary attribute, we understand primary attribute is something that increases damage. Increases all damage for barbarians by, each point is 1%. So that's why you see 1288% damage increase. And the armor is equivalent to strength, again, 1288. Now, that means that both my outright damage and my physical resistance is increased by strength for a barbarian. Plus, vitality, for me, is very important again because it increases my health. Now, in essence, for Barbarian, both are very important, and it's important to find a balance between these characteristics. And generally, you want all your items, like for a classic, for an orthodox build, you would like all your items to give you maximum strength and maximum vitality. In which proportions, this is up for you to decide. You might want to have 1500 vitality and say 900 strength, or you want to have 1500 strength and 900 vitality. It depends on your preference, it depends on your build. Universally, for each level, you want to have relative amounts. For instance, say a very simple idea. You want to have 4 strength to each 3 vitality. Just keep it in your mind, and whenever you see that you're getting too far away, you have to fix it. Like in my case, it's 4 to 3. 4 strength to 3 vitality. More defensive build would be 1 to 1, or even, say, 3 to 4. It again depends because strength increases your damage mitigation ability, you have to think very well before you actually do something, because having too much vitality means you have that's what I call naked hit points. Naked hit points are not protected anyhow from damage mitigation, whereas sometimes when you have low hit points but you have very high strength, your damage mitigation, the armor, physical armor, will do the rest. Let's move to dexterity. Dexterity is a primary attribute for demon hunters and monks. Why? Because they're agile bastards. Increases all damage for demon hunters and monks by the equivalent of dexterity in percentage, and increases dodge chance by evasive dodge. So in essence, we understand that both demon hunters and monks will have really insane dodge chance compared to other classes. And now this is something important. As you notice, that's the difference. Strength increases sheer armor, physical resistance. Dexterity increases dodge chance, you see? So even though I'm not a demon hunter, I kind of want to have high dexterity. Why? Because I want the dodge. The dodge is, regardless of a class, is very important because dodge allows you to dodge the physical attack outright. I'm not sure about magical attack. I don't think it quite works this way, but even dodging a very powerful hit is so awesome. For instance, you have like 1000 hit points left and you're fighting against a boss, let's say against a butcher, and butcher hits you on the head with his gigantic cleaver, and you know that you're gonna die, but then it says this big beautiful word, dodge, and you're like, oh yeah, baby, now you're so dead, you gave me this chance. Anyway, so as a monk or a demon hunter, you want to have high dexterity. And plus, someone would argue that in essence, they're not the same, demon hunter and monk. Yes, you are freaking right. I mean, in case of a monk, you're in the front lines, you're on the front line of the battlefield, whereas as a demon hunter, you kind of like to stay behind. So one could argue that as a demon hunter, you want to have outrageously high dexterity compared to your vitality. And I would probably agree with that, especially if you play in a group of players with your friends. Having higher dexterity than vitality is generally a wise decision as a demon hunter, whereas as a monk, That's a big freaking question because if you have way too high dexterity and way too low vitality, you will have good damage, right? You will have good dodge, but you will not have enough hit points to survive if something goes wrong, and something will go wrong, trust me, especially on higher difficulties. Next is intelligence. Intelligence is a primary attribute for smartasses such as Witch Doctor and a Wizard. Increases all damage for Witch Doctors and Wizards by equivalent to intelligence in percentage. Increases resistances by 27.4. Now, this is another assness Blizzard thought of, and it's, in essence, intelligence, unlike dodge, unlike dexterity or strength, increases your resistances. So, funny thing is, barbarians are resistant to physical damage, agile characters just dodge, and intelligent characters, they're resistant to their, magical attacks. And it's very funny because technically, in PvP, the thing in which barbarian is very interested, any barbarian, is the magical resistance, in order so that he can tear apart the magical characters, because physical damage, physical resistances do not really play against magical bolts, right? Whereas as a mage, your primary concern is barbarians and monks, so you want to increase your strength in order to have an armor, right? Or dexterity in order to have a dodge, not resistances. And it's super smart what they did there. In essence, when you create a character that makes you think, do you want to have high intelligence as a barbarian or relatively high intelligence, or do you want to have relatively high strength as a witch doctor? And then sometimes you would love stuff that gives me vitality, intelligence, and strength, let's say, right? And you equip and you're like, what is this stupid shit? But when you go to PvP, you realize, wow, that was actually very useful and important. So intelligence increases the resistance by the almost equivalent. So let's say by your intelligence, let's say int, divided by 10. So in any circumstance, you will have like 274 divided by 10 is 27.4. That's your resistance. And you have to understand that this is not the actual percentage. The actual percentage can be seen here. You go to defense, you go to cold resistance. Cold resistance 110. Reduces cold damage from level 57 enemies from equivalent to your level by 27.92%. So as you can see, 28% from 110 resistance. But from 27, it's like 9%. So you see that there's like, you have to check these percentages. And you know what? 30% is actually very, very high resistance. And the funny part is you don't really need to have high resistance in number to get very high, percentage resistance. What I'm trying to say is, for instance, in my case, damage mitigation is 64%, 63.19, when I have 4,900 armor. Right? This is gigantic, outrageous amount, and if you actually calculate, it's a very, very small percent per point, right? Whereas in resistances, you get a gigantic yield for even the smallest, even having 1 point in resistance is already good. It's already going to be enough, it's going to be change enough to consider, okay? So yeah, and as you can see, there's so many of them that having high intelligence in many circumstances is a very good substitute for having resistances. I mean, look at this. Cold resistance, fire resistance, lightning resistance, poison resistance, arcane holy resistance. Yeah, that's the stuff. So we have like 5 resistances, and we also have physical resistance. And having physical resistance is also smarter than just having high armor. So in essence, for a wizard or a witch doctor, it would be really nice to have a physical resistance against, for instance, barbarian or other melee enemy fighters, melee and ranged fighters which attack you with physical damage, then rather than actually having high armor, because it's going to be hard for them to have high armor, and yeah, this game is full of traps. Now that would be it about attributes. This was very long video. I'm sorry for that, but I gave you in essence everything you need to know about it and made you think about some things. So for an orthodox build, in short, for an orthodox build, you want to focus on your primary characteristic and vitality. The the relative ratio of primary characteristic to your vitality will be dictated by your build. For instance, 5:3, for instance, 4:3, for instance, 1:1, and etc. Whatever you decide will be dictated in essence by your build, and you have to decide what do you actually want to do, because it's very important. Having correct attributes allocation will make you a better character, will help you make a better build, and when the PvP will actually be available to kick your friend's ass to hell. To kick him so hard that he will fly to the goddamn moon. Well, that would be it. I thank you so much for watching. My name is Mike, and if you're new to my channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button because it helps me immensely, and I will love you for the eternity. When I die, I will rise from my dead and bug you to hell, and you will die as well. No, that's not true. I'm not trying to creep you out. Or do I? Thank you so much for watching. Have a greatest day, and bye-bye.
Each of my items is very special to me. But
Very.
I suppose I can sell you one or two things if I must.
Can you now?
Spent all night.
But I do wonder, why is this dragon here? Is this dragon somehow connected to the Dawn Guard or the vampiric faction? Is that the case? Or is it irrelevant and it's just a show off of new animations for dragons?